All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Faces of Business. I'm Damon Pistolke, your host. And if you thought we were going to be on a little while ago, StreamYard wasn't talking nice with LinkedIn, so we had to come back again. So I hope the people are going to be able to see this. I know it's going to be starting here on my profile. I just want to refresh to make sure we're there, because if we're not live on LinkedIn, we're going to do this again. But we are live on LinkedIn, so I'm happy about that. With me today, I've got Angela Thurman of Thurman Co. Angela, I am so excited to have you here today, because we were talking earlier, and I got to get my microphone back over here, because we were talking earlier, and man, it's just like when we started talking about your experience, it was just like, this is cool, and then it gets cooler and cooler and cooler. So we got to start. And I know I apologize because you told me about your college history, and we weren't on live on LinkedIn, but I'd like to start over again, because you started out going to college to be a math major, and then something happened and you went a completely different direction, and it's been fantastic.
So, I always thought that I would be a math teacher, or math and science teacher, high
Yeah.
school level. And then when I was about 16, a deacon in my church, who was the chair of the engineering division in our local college, a very small private school called John Brown University, took me under his wing and gave me a subscription to Woman Engineer magazine, and opened my eyes to the potential that maybe I could be an engineer. And that really made a difference. And it was really great to have a mentor like that in my life. So I decided that I would study engineering instead of math, and become an engineer instead of a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that really changed the direction
Yeah.
of where I was planning to go to school and what I would study.
Yeah. So you ended up getting an electrical engineering degree.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first,
Yes.
in and of itself, the people that understand, that's a hard degree to get. First of all,
Yeah.
yeah, that's no slacker degree there. And then you went on to do a few other things. And today we're talking about the keys to project management, which is Angela is a project management master. And you'll see why when we start talking about this a little bit more, because some of the projects he's managed are mind blowing, quite honestly. And it's so cool to have you on today. So when you got out of school for engineering, what were some of the things that you were thinking you were going to be doing at that time?
Well, it was really kind of funny because, again, Woman Engineer magazine had a full page ad for NASA Lewis, which is now called NASA Glenn, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in Cleveland, Ohio. And again, that particular professor, in the summer between my junior and senior years, we had gone with a couple of other students to Ecuador and worked at a missionary shortwave radio station.
Uh-huh.
And that was a fantastic experience in and of itself. But coming away from that, the missionaries had a need for a switching power supply. So a switching power supply for the missionary station in Ecuador became my senior design project. So when I saw that full page ad in Woman Engineer magazine, one of the things that they highlighted was power systems.
Wow.
So I decided I'm going to apply to NASA. And it turns out that they called me for an interview. And ultimately I interviewed, and they're like, well, how did you apply to Lewis? And I'm like, because there was a full page ad in Woman Engineer magazine. And so that was kind of funny. But they did hire me, and they hired me to work on power systems for the space station. So my first job out of college was working as basically a project manager as an electrical engineer, designing, testing, and managing power systems for the space station. And my particular job was the load converter, which is basically a big switching power supply.
Wow. So what your
So
senior project was, you were kind of doing it at a different level for the space station.
yes, so because I'd gone with that professor to Ecuador, because I'd met those missionaries, because they needed a power supply, I ended up at NASA.
Wow.
Yeah,
From a math teacher to building power supplies for the space station. That's a
yeah,
little different path.
yeah. And of course, I was female and very young, and there weren't
Yeah.
very many. This is in the
Yeah.
late 80s.
Yeah.
Um, and I was monitoring the activities of suppliers like Westinghouse and TRW and male engineers who were significantly my seniors and
Mm-hmm.
had a lot more experience than I did. So, so my branch chief sent me to assertiveness training,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that I had to learn. But I also had the opportunity, because I was at the NASA facility in Cleveland. Dr. Harold Kersner taught at the nearby University Baldwin Wallace College, and Dr. Kersner is the leading expert on project management theory, modern project management theory. He's written numerous books. He's one of the founders of the Project Management Institute. And so NASA would bring him in to teach courses on project management. So
Wow.
I got my initial project management training from Dr. Kersner directly. And so
Wow.
I had his book in 1989. I still have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was a really, those are some treasured memories.
Yeah. Well, and when you look back at it too, the beginning of your career, the formative years of the career, and you get to learn from one of the very best sources of learning in
The
project management,
master.
the master in project management, on probably some of the most difficult projects known to man at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And well, if nothing else, because of the environments that they have to operate in and all the, it can't fail.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing. But that's really cool. So you took this, and now you're at NASA, you're making power supplies for the space station. Then you decide to move on and do some other things. So
Mm-hmm.
what were some of the next things that you were doing?
Well, because of some family dynamics that were going on, I left NASA and I moved
Mm-hmm.
back to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so I spent some years working in a manufacturing company where we manufactured silicon and germanium, which are two materials that have infrared qualities. So
Okay.
although they're metal, they have infrared properties and are used for night vision systems. So
Okay. Yeah.
a big metal blank, imagine that, could be used in the night vision system of a tank or a helicopter or personal devices like a rifle sight or
Mm-hmm.
binoculars, those sorts of things. But they're also semiconductors. So we also had another group that grew single crystal germanium and silicon, gallium arsenide, indium arsenide in chambers that were single crystal, and that was for the semiconductor industry. So imagine, if you will, a single crystal structure that could be 6 or 8 or 9 feet long and weigh 400 pounds. And again, it's one single crystal structure.
Wow.
Pardon me. And so it's 7 nines pure. So 99.99999% pure
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah.
So very high quality standards. And that would be used for the semiconductor market.
Wow. Wow,
So,
that's crazy, because they needed the purity to be able to conduct as quickly and as error
yes,
free and all that kind of
and
stuff.
to create that to get the highest amount of power generation. off
Yeah.
of that chip.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. That's cool. So then, I mean, then I don't know if this is quite the right point in your career, but then you started to do some work in the telecommunications industry, wasn't it?
Right, right. So because the manufacturer that I was working for was really a defense manufacturer at the end of the first Gulf War, there wasn't so much need for
Yep.
tanks and
Yeah.
helicopters.
Yeah.
So we went through a riff and I found myself looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I parlayed that a network is a network is a network interest to the telecommunications industry. So just like an electrical network has sources and sinks and peaks and valleys in their demand, so does a telecommunications network. And luckily, the person that was interviewing me understood that, bought it, and hired me.
Yeah.
So I became an engineer, and I did engineering, planning, a whole bunch of different functions for Williams Communications in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I was there for a number of years. And I spent actually quite a long time in the telecommunications industry with various companies.
Nice. Nice. So now let's talk about this a little bit because you
Yes.
glossed over this stuff. You
I
glossed over
know
this
a little
stuff.
bit.
So you did, but let's back up a little bit. So
Yes.
in part of this, you got a master's degree in telecommunications management, right?
Yes. Yes. From Oklahoma State University.
Yep. And for your capstone project, you did a metropolitan. Now these words were not put together like this before, but you developed a metropolitan access network, telecommunications, basically a hub that would be like in your thesis around the city of Atlanta, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm sorry,
just
go
tell
ahead.
us a little bit about that, and then
Yeah.
kind of what happened as it came to fruition.
So in telecommunications, there is a basic unit of transmission called an optical channel, and that's equivalent to 672 voice channels. So just like I have my beloved
Oh yeah, the old phone like that.
phone,
Yep.
this is one voice channel.
Yeah.
So an optical channel can carry 672 individual voice channels.
Yeah.
So this network around Atlanta that I planned would carry 48 times that
Okay.
much capacity. So the amount of capacity that you would need for a television program, let's say, would need at least one of those optical channels.
Okay.
And it's best if you have one going in and one going out.
Okay.
So you, at that time, Williams had contracts with Turner Field, CNN, the Center for Disease Control. They also owned a satellite uplink station outside the city, and numerous other customers within the city, of course. But those were the big ones. So the cost to connect all of those really high capacity locations to the network's point of presence, where the brain center in Atlanta for the backbone of the network, was really expensive if you had to buy it directly from Bell South. So the idea was, let's purchase it from a third-party supplier and link these all together and save a lot of money, get additional capacity that will allow us to grow. And that became what was known then as a metropolitan access network.
Okay.
And so that's what we did. And so I designed it, negotiated it, and then eventually we built it. And
Wow.
it's a huge success. So
Yeah. So this was part of your master's degree in telecommunication
yeah,
management.
yeah,
You figured out a way to deliver data to these high demand users
hmm
easier or
hmm
and less
hmm
expensively, but and more efficiently. And then you're actually able, because of where you were working, to design it, build it, and see it through the actual realization of it and working for these customers.
hmm
And
and
as you
then to
said,
replicate it.
and then at Williams they replicated it.
Yes.
Wow. So yeah, so it's enough though that to me, I'm still back on this in Atlanta. So you thought this up, you designed it, you built it, and then people like the CDC and Turner Broadcasting and some of the other big users of data were running on this stuff. So that's incredible. And then they replicated it. So that alone, I mean, okay, so let's just back up a second. We were talking about making the power supply for the space station. Now we're talking about, you developed a metropolitan access network with Williams, and then they designed it, built it, put it in place. They replicated it throughout the United States, and you're still going. You're still going at this stuff, because now we talk about something else, and you were said that part of what you were as part of your career in this is you've been a subject matter expert on telecommunication, undersea telecommunication too.
Cables. Yeah. Yep.
Undersea telecommunication cable. So tell me about that a little bit, because I'm just like this web of your career is so interesting, because I mean, when you start back and just think about this, you were in northwestern Arkansas. You were influenced by a teacher, by them giving you a magazine subscription to
Mhm.
go to school for engineering. And you went to school and got an electrical engineering degree,
Mhm.
started working at NASA because of that magazine, and
Mhm.
because you saw the ad in the magazine,
Yes.
and you were on a mission, and you saw the need for a power supply that helped you get that job. And then it moved into telecommunications. So you were, the metropolitan access then turned into you becoming an undersea telecommunications cable subject matter expert. How the heck do you get to be that?
Well, when you're doing planning,
Yeah.
um, you eventually do find a niche area. And one of those things for me was the undersea cables. Where were the landing sites, the points?
Yeah.
Um, and maybe it was Miami, and maybe it was San Luis Obispo. Um, but you eventually need to connect. And Williams had a buy-sell agreement with British Telecom.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were buying capacity in Europe, and
Mm-hmm.
particularly with British Telecom, in exchange for selling them capacity in the United States.
Yeah.
So, um, so I was reviewing, contracts at the beginning, and then that generated just an interest in the the wet landings, the cables, and what that network looked like.
Yeah.
And um, and those contracts are a little bit more complicated than the regular U.S. exchange agreements with other fiber optic
Yeah.
communications companies. So they took a little bit more finesse, I think, and they're more there are not as many of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of had to learn where they were, and because we had an uplink satellite in California,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, how am I going to connect that satellite to the cable sites in San Luis Obispo? And once we, how are we going to expand our network beyond our own borders?
Yeah.
And that's where that came from.
Wow. Wow. This is cool. This is cool though, because I mean, it's such an interesting career path because you were able to go in several different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And then this, I mean, to go beyond this, then you helped a couple other, another one too here that we talked about is when Disney moved their studio, you helped them do some more work there too with data and telecommunications.
Right. So I planned the network for the relocation to Pico Boulevard, and that was a huge, huge event.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said now that they're using that, and that same kind of way that's been done, or the system is being used in other places now too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. That's something. That's something. Cause so when you look back and you talk about the project management work that you're doing today, it's kind of a natural, um, part of doing these big projects, because if
Mm-hmm.
you're not managing projects well, you can't handle something that's global, something that's technical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I look at some of these, and we're going to talk about a few more, when you look at some of these, what are some of the things that you really learned that are, one of the fundamental keys of project management?
One of the keys is to understand who who really is your stakeholder. Who's got skin in the game,
Yeah.
and who needs to be informed, because it may surprise you that someone is going to be impacted that you didn't realize
Mhm.
was going to need to know something. And someone may have information that you're going to need in the future, and
Yeah.
you may have overlooked them.
Yeah.
So definitely identifying your stakeholders is really important, and that needs to be done upfront and early.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other, when you think of project management too, you
Mhm.
think of, there's like and this is me and my lack of project management. I'm just going to throw that out there, even though I did take it in college, but I'm not good at it. Right. So, you have to think about some of these things. There are the critical path items that you have to get
Yes.
done, and that, how, I mean, when you have these huge projects, like, how the heck did you manage something like this with all these moving pieces? Was it software? Was it, sticky notes on a huge wall? What was it?
Well, early on, it was definitely a big schedule on the wall with a lot of sticky notes that were moving. But I am a fan of good project management tools, and I have my favorites.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, your critical path can definitely move, and you can have change that comes in and uh, can force you to change the critical path. And
Yeah.
so your sponsor and your stakeholder holders may have to realize that due to changes in requirements or availability of resources, the critical path may change, and it can
Yeah.
improve, but it can get delayed.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're doing some of these projects, I
Hmm.
got to imagine you're just like sitting here someplace and you're about ready to pull your hair out because something happened, and it's just like, oh my goodness, I
Hmm.
can't believe this is happening. It's just like
Hmm.
the earth just crumbled around me.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to relive the bad part of it, but let's laugh about it a little
Yeah.
bit. What are one of
Yeah.
these situations that you can share, if you can share some, where you go,
Uh-huh.
man, this was a really, oh God, I'm just going to have to sit and think a while about this moment.
Oh, one of them. This was in the aerospace industry when you our team needed to perform a particular reliability test. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it had to be performed at an outside lab. So first
Yeah.
of all, we had to and this was with a third party, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
We had to find a lab that was capable of performing the test, book the lab, so there was a cost involved, and then conduct the test, which took, let's say, 3 weeks. And
Wow.
then everything, the results came in and we're ready to proceed. And I asked the third party, I said, did you make sure that the customer had signed off on the test plan before you conducted the test? And there was this, oh, were they supposed to?
Oh.
And I'm like, read the requirements on the contract.
Yeah.
Yes, the customer had to sign off on the test plan before it was performed. And so we had to go back and get a letter from the
Yeah.
customer that said, yes, I approve the test plan, and then go do it all again.
Oh my goodness. My goodness. Yeah, because hey, we talked about the telecommunications, but you were at Collins Aerospace and you were doing project management work in the aerospace industry as well, correct?
Yes, for over 10 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What were some of the things you liked about that?
I liked that the work I was doing would directly impact the end product and the customer results, because I was working on complex products that would be delivered to customers like Boeing and Airbus and Bombardier.
Mm-hmm.
And so those went into aircraft that real people flew on every day.
Yeah.
And, maybe you didn't see those products, but they did have an impact on your satisfaction in your flight.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody likes to be sitting at a gate and hearing that announcement, we're sorry, passengers, but we're going to be delayed because there's a maintenance issue on the aircraft.
Yeah.
So I like to think about that if the products that I was helping to deliver every day were of a very high quality, that ultimately I was helping passengers get to their destination, the way they needed to.
And safely.
And safely, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool because it is. I mean, when you look at project management, people think of, this project, that project. But when you look at something like the early in your career, the space station or in the aerospace, project management encompasses from the time you design the product and the time until it's no longer in use anymore.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. I know, is it Stephen Liu, I believe his last name is, on LinkedIn. He talks that he's an end of life project engineer at Northrop Grumman, I believe, isn't it? Or Lockheed Martin. I can't remember. I'm sorry, Stephen, I forget, but it's interesting because the project management is like, it's not just a little bit. There's a lot to this.
Right. So obsolescence management is in and of itself an entire category of project management, because you have to think about, if this resistor, capacitor, chip is no longer available, what are we going to substitute so that the entire design is not obsolete? And what does that do so all of the documentation, think of the bomb, something just as simple as the bomb has to be updated. And how does that flow down to all of the other documentation, the ERP system, and everything else? Because in aerospace, if you change one component, the entire product has to be retested. And in most cases recertified to convince the FAA if it's a commercial aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
that it is still safe. For example, let's say that you change from a resistor that is ceramic to a resistor that's now plastic. Well, does that plastic fabrication have a different melting point?
Mm-hmm.
Will this cause toxicity concerns in the device, because the device is going to heat up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what if it causes smoke in the cabin, and or some sort of fumes that are going to asphyxiate the pilots?
Yeah.
All because you changed from ceramic to plastic.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about that, and it is he. I was just looking up Steven's profile because I felt bad because I interviewed Steven. I think it's been over a year ago now, but he's a super nice guy,
He
and
is. He
yeah,
is.
and he worked for Lockheed Martin, and now he's at Applied Materials. But yeah, the the project management though, the keys to it. You mentioned the first one is understand your keys.
Mhm.
Key stakeholders
Mhm.
and make sure you're communicating with them.
Mhm.
But as you're going through these projects,
Mhm.
what was your kind of routine? I mean, did you like to have a cadence where, hey, we're going to do this kind of meeting every day, this kind of meeting once a week, this kind of meeting once a month? How what was it? I mean, so we're talking about
Yeah.
projects that lasted maybe a year.
Oh, easily a year.
Yeah,
Easily a year.
yeah. Okay.
So unless I'm working on a software project that is an agile framework,
Yep.
I don't have a daily stand up.
Yep.
Otherwise, the team just gets sick of me.
Yeah.
So usually for most of my projects, a weekly cadence was adequate,
Mm-hmm.
because that gave the team time to actually get some work performed
Yep.
before they had to
Report on it. Yeah.
report on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am a big fan of the action item register and the risk register.
So let's explain those so people that people don't understand them.
So an action item register is where you actually capture all of the tasks or action items that need to be done, the due date of when do we expect this to be done, and who's responsible for the action. So who has the X on their forehead to
Yeah.
do this thing that needs to be done?
Yeah. Okay. And you
And it can be
said that the
very,
risk then too.
yeah.
You said that's
It,
the action item.
mhm.
What? How did you describe it? The
I,
action
I
item.
call it an action item register.
Action item
Yeah,
register.
just
Okay.
a very simple
Mm-hmm.
document. However you want to capture it. I use a spreadsheet because I think in spreadsheets.
Okay.
But
Okay.
a risk register is where you simply identify what is the potential, what is the risk? What is its probability of occurring? What is its impact if it does occur? And what
Yeah.
steps are we taking to mitigate that risk, to ensure that we're protecting ourselves?
Wow. That's cool. That's cool. This is some gold right here because I'm
Mhm.
writing it down because the um it's so important to understand those risks because it
Right,
could be a huge risk, but if it's infinitesimal chance of it happening, well
right,
then you want to give it appropriate consideration.
right,
But
right.
if it's kind of just a pain in the behind risk or pain in behind impact, but it
Impact.
happens impact, but it happens easily and it's going to happen over and over and over. You want to get rid of that one. You don't
Right,
get a
right.
lot of time to get over it. So I like the risk register and how you quantify how we should really spend our time on the right
Mhm.
things to make the biggest impact.
Impact and probability.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'm writing some notes here because it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So if people aren't listening to this, and because project management, it really is, it's a lot of, from your perspective, it's a lot of, yes, you can put the science and the numbers to it, but a lot of it is you have to be intimately involved in it and really feel it and understand how it's going.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So what are some of the things that you really have found over the years that make it make it easier to manage these projects? Other than the tools, other than just
Other than mhm.
yeah.
Relationships. Yes,
Okay.
definitely developing the relationships and um, letting the team know that you need them, but they need you.
Yeah.
Because again, the project manager normally is someone who doesn't have um, direct authority.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not someone that is going to hold the title of, director of this and that or whatever. So you have that. Um, you have to get your authority by virtue of the fact that the team trusts you.
Uh-huh. That's a
To
huge thing.
mhm.
Yeah, I think you probably just uncovered one of the toughest thing for project managers, and probably one of the best things that a project manager should understand early is that you said it really well there, Angela, because you're probably not their boss. You probably can't really direct their actions by, by authority, but they should understand that how they integrate in the success of your relationship should be with them, so that you can help them understand how they're going to be important in making sure this project is successful, and the good and consequently the bad implications if they
Mhm.
aren't.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
something like that can be, just getting people to show up to meetings.
Yeah.
Um, and having those critical conversations. If someone is not showing up to the meeting, is it because you generally are so overwhelmed you just don't have time for yet another cadence meeting? So is there someone else who should be reassigned to support the project, or do we need to move the time of the meeting so
Yeah.
that it better fits your schedule? What can we do to help make the project and the team successful in the end?
Yeah, that's so important, and you just said you said so much in there, because because a lot of it, because I'm thinking of myself. I'm a technical guy, right? I'm a technical, but you said some human things that are really important to think about their perspective. Are they too busy to come? Is it the wrong time? Is it that we need more resources? Those kind of things. And it's easy to say, hey, you need to show up for this meeting. It's at blah 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 and do that. But those other things are probably really the underlying root cause of the reason why they're not able to attend the meeting. And really helping address the root cause is the way to solve the problem, and build the relationships that will get projects done on time.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And a
it is.
lot of I've learned a lot of those lessons because I've been doing it wrong.
Well, that's awesome, because I don't know how many times I hear that from people that are really good at something like yourself, and we go, we're only good because we screwed up a lot.
Yes. Yes.
That's great. That's great. Well, this is okay. Okay. I'm getting into talking project management here, because this is good stuff, because I mean, you talked about the relationships, and brought up the fact that you're probably not in a direct authority position, and you really have to build the relationships, and communicate the how everyone working together is really how successful projects get done, and get done on time. But you were back. You said something a little while ago about agile,
Oh,
because
yes.
I really want to understand your thought, because I'm exposed to agile once in a while, and
Uh-huh.
it's not the traditional project management. So,
Hmm.
have you worked with agile
I'm working with
much?
it right now. Yeah.
Okay, so you're helping software development happen. So,
Hmm.
what are some of the things that you see that traditional project management and agile are like? They're button heads on it, but there's some
Yes.
things that are similar, work together. And what do you really think about agile overall?
So, first of all, let me just put a caveat in here. So, too many people, in my opinion, in my humble opinion,
There you go.
too many people are confusing agile with a capital A and agile with a lowercase a. So they're using a lot of lingo and jargon,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
not understanding what agile with a capital A is. So they're saying, we need to use agile. We need to be, we need to use agile project management because they think it sounds cool and like it's the new thing. And it does not mean nimble or new.
Okay. This is good.
It's very specific. And if you don't know what agile is, I highly recommend that you Google Agile Manifesto.
Okay.
And that should be your first step to understanding what agile is, or agile project management.
Okay.
So first of all, agile project management was originally and is primarily intended for software development.
Yes. Yep.
Now, it can be used for other types of project management, but the key thing about agile project management is that it is iterative. So you don't start with all of your requirements and a schedule. Mm-hmm. You do not start understanding what your scope of work is, which for someone like me who has done a lot of traditional waterfall project management, the thought of beginning a project and not understanding what my scope is frightening. So to say that we're going to do a little bit of work and give that to the customer and see what they say, and then come back and do a little bit of more work and see what they say then, and repeat this every 2 weeks, does not intuitively sound like it's going to lead to success, but it actually does.
Okay.
Because when you, particularly in software, you may not exactly know what your end goal is. And software development is particularly risky for changes. So you might start down a path and then someone says, but what if we did this? And then you're
start back again.
And a lot of the work you've already done may have been wasted. Mm-hmm. And that's why an iterative method is so beneficial.
Yeah, I can see how that really helps in software development, because, developing an application, if you just said, oh, I'm going to go out and develop a Microsoft Excel application. Mm-hmm. Okay. You start with one function and then you work up to the other functions after, addition and subtraction, basically, and kind of see what are the next ones you want, or next features that people are asking for. It'd be nice if it did this. This is something critical that's missing, rather than going out and trying to define in the box what it looks like and spending all that time to get there, to go, people go, here are these 3 to 5 critical things, and they weren't in your box.
Exactly.
Okay.
Whereas if I'm building a house, there are some real physical constraints. It can it's going to be 1 story, and it's going to have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and so I know I'm going to need a kitchen sink and 10 windows. And now there can be some changes. I can say, well, I'm going to want quartz countertops instead of granite, or I'm going to paint the walls gray instead of white. There can be changes, but it's not going to have the catastrophic implications that you would see in the same type of changes with software.
Yeah. This is good stuff here, Angela, because
I'm glad you think so.
Because it is when when you're trying to think about, and there's a lot of people that are out developing software. There's a lot of people that I've heard
Mhm.
about it. There's a lot of people that develop software like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
And I think there's still people though too that develop software the traditional project management way, where that this is what we're going to make, this is what it's going to look like, and go off and
Mhm.
build it as well. But I really see the differences now when you're in these, and you've done a few of these, the agile type iterative project
Mhm.
management. What do you like better?
I am at my heart still a waterfall gal.
Okay. Okay.
I I like being able to track, to tick the boxes as the requirements are
Yeah.
met, and
Yeah.
to have that traceability. And
Yeah.
Agile doesn't have an action item register. Agile Agile uses a task board, and you track your user stories one at a time as they go through, but you generate new user stories with every sprint. So
Yeah. Yep. 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 That's so
it's
good.
it's with Agile, it's much harder to define when you're done.
Yeah, because there's always an end. You would think there's an endpoint there, but it could be continuing
Yes,
indefinitely.
yes. With Agile, you're done when your money's done.
There you go. You're done when your money's done. That's
Yes.
a oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Angela, it's been awesome talking to you. You know, we used to sit here thought about almost 50 minutes now, and we're
Oh my
talking about
goodness.
project management because it is so interesting. You've got such an interesting career, and now you're helping people as a project manager. You've got a team. You're helping people manage these complex projects.
Mhm.
So, what have you really learned in the last however long you've been doing this for people, helping manage many different projects?
Um, First of all, there is, I think, a great need for project management consultants, because so many companies um, could benefit from having a project manager that comes in and helps out with a project.
Mm-hmm.
Again, only for a short time. And as a project manager, we realize that because a project is time boxed,
Yeah.
and we're not expecting to come on and be a part of your company for, an
Ever.
eternity,
Yeah.
forever. Um, but a lot of small to medium sized companies don't have this expertise in house,
Yeah.
and don't realize they could have if they would reach out to a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing in a professional who does have expertise in this area could really ramp up their ability to identify and finish a project.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be any number of things. It could be a small thing like mapping out their processes and identifying areas of improvement, either in their management, office management type of things, or in their factories. Or
Mm-hmm.
it could be a big thing like onboarding a new supplier, um, leaning out their factory themselves, or moving a factory. That's a big project, and would really require some expertise.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's
um,
cool. I think about it. I say because of me. I've been hired a few times to build factories, and I'm like,
uh-huh.
I've done a lot, but I'm really probably not that. I don't consider myself an expert. It's kind of like you said, after you screwed up enough many times doing it. Uh, but that is really something to consider though, because there are a myriad of projects that happen.
Exactly,
Like I
exactly.
said, my experience is, even in bigger companies, they're going to build a factory. I'm not even talking huge, like
Yeah.
big factory. I'm just talking, 100,000 square feet. When
Mhm.
you start to think about the details that it needs, from walking into, and I'm not talking greenfield, because I've done greenfield too, but
Yeah.
when you just go, hey, we're going to open another little bit of manufacturing over here, and we got 100,000 square foot building, and it's an empty shell, just
Mhm.
with the permitting, the
Mhm.
build out, only the stuff you're building out, even if it's not your building. When you think about, okay, what are we got to do with electrical and HVAC and what kind of people stuff we got? What are the IT requirements we
Where
got?
are the fire extinguishers
Yeah,
going to go?
yeah, down to that. I mean, you just talk about
Are
this.
are the aisles going to be wide enough to allow a gurney to get through in the case of an emergency?
Yep. All that good stuff that you got to do when you're doing these different projects. But you're right. The the key resources are busy doing the tasks that need to be done in a business, and that project manager can come in for the scope of that project or the term of that project and really help them execute that efficiently without having detrimental effects on the rest of their business.
Exactly.
And that's very valuable, because oftentimes you'll have people that probably aren't normally managing projects, or B, not normally doing those kind of things, trying to do project work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what one thing, if you could tell one aspiring project manager, just tell these aspiring project managers one thing, what would you tell them?
Join PMI, because it's a very small investment, but you will, number one, have a network of other project managers that you can rely on and lean on to obtain knowledge and training, to be a mentor, and you'll have access to all kinds of knowledge and information, including the project management body of knowledge and the Agile program guide.
Nice.
But you'll have access to events and where you can meet people, interesting people,
Yeah.
who can help you grow in your project management journey.
Yeah. And that's the Project Management Institute?
Yes, Project
Okay.
Management Institute.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we knew that. Well, Angela, it's been awesome talking to you. And
Thank you.
I'm just floored at the cool projects and stuff. I mean, I'm thinking back through them, and it's so neat to talk to you about them. And then but through this, and I want to be serious about this part of it, you've managed some very technical, global, high complexity in tough situations, no fail options kind of projects. And I think that's awesome. And that goes, I think, and it speaks volumes about the help that you can do with companies today in their projects that they need done.
Well, thank you. I hope
Yeah.
so. I'm looking forward to helping more people. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we're going to sign off here on the Faces of Business. Again, Angela Thurman with us today, talking about the keys to project management. And man, she just blew it out of the park. I'm so thankful for you being here today, Angela.
Thank you, Damon.
All right. Well, we're gone for now, and it is Thursday, so we'll be back next Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.